it's Liz back with another video, obviously, because that's what you're watching. So today I thought that I would talk about something that is extremely relevant in my day-to-day life, which is applying for jobs and resume building, cover letters, interviewing, all of that really fun stuff that everyone loves to do. So I thought that today I would talk about some resume, interview, and application tips that I have developed. Hopefully, if you're applying to jobs too, some of these tips can be relevant, and some of these tips might be a little basic. I just wanted to make a video for anyone, even if you've never made a resume before in your life, just some basic tips to help you get started. So first, I'm going to talk about some resume tips that I have developed. So when you're formatting your resume, less is more. You don't want to put any photos unless you're applying at a place that requires a headshot, and you don't really want to put any graphics or anything unless that specific position requires something along those lines. In my resume, when I was still in college, I had my education at the top, and then when I graduated, I moved it to the bottom. And this can go either way. I've heard people say to have your education at the bottom when you're a new graduate because that kind of shows that you want to hit the ground running, but then I've also heard people say keep your education at the top for at least 6 to 8 months after you graduate to kind of emphasize that you're so new out of school. Either one is honestly completely fine. If you're at a job and they decide not to accept you just because you have your education at the top, that might not be the job for you anyways. Next, we're going to talk about some content that you want to include in your resume. The first piece of content is numbers. Numbers. Be as specific as possible because you want to show exactly what you did. And if you just write, I made a TikTok on your resume, how is that different? But if you made a TikTok that got 2 million views and 800,000 likes and you put that on a resume, that's significantly more impressive because it's more specific and it shows the recruiter exactly what you did. You also want to have a skills section. Now, I've also heard don't put skills in your resume because what you list under the job descriptions should imply your skills. And again, that can go either or. I like to put my skills at the bottom of my resume because there are some specific things that I haven't used in my daily internships and jobs, such as Photoshop or InDesign. I've learned those in classes, but haven't had the opportunity to incorporate them in my career. So I make sure to list those so any recruiter that's looking for someone that is proficient in Excel can see that I am proficient in Excel. Obviously, it goes without saying, you want to keep your resume to 1 page. Again, unless a specific position requires more than 1 page for a resume. I have not come across something like that, so for the most part, try and keep it 1 page. You can either put 4 to 5 recent experiences and relevant experiences. So from time to time, I will switch out different experiences. In my Google Drive, I have about 100 plus different resumes for different jobs that I've applied for. And some of them have different combinations of different positions that I've done, and I can easily copy and paste and switch out the different positions. So for example, if I'm applying to be a Universal Studios tour guide, then I can go back into a different application where I talked about being a tour guide at BU to kind of feature those skills, and maybe I'll take out my amusement park work because that's not super relevant for a tour guide position. Next, I'm going to talk about something that is a little tricky and tedious when it comes to resume building, but it's seeming cooler than you actually are. Never lie on your resume, but changing the words of certain actions that you've done can go a long way. So for example, when I was a brand ambassador, instead of saying I did silly little TikToks and made little events on campus and gave out posters, I said that I spearheaded marketing initiatives on Boston University's campus through in-person and digital tactics. Now, that sounds a lot more professional than posted a few TikToks online. Another example I have is when I was a social media manager for her campus, and instead of saying that I scheduled content and posted that content on specific days of the week, I talked about how I developed a content calendar including scripting, filming, and editing 3 TikTok videos a week. So again, this is incorporating a number. I posted 3 TikToks a week, and I also listed specific verbs such as editing and scripting content. That is very important. Like I said, you want to be as specific as possible in your resume. So next I want to talk about application specific advice. Number one is pretty obvious, but do your research on the company. And while you're doing your research, find any connections to past positions or personal connections that you can. You also want to take some buzzwords that are listed in the description of the job that you are applying for and put some of those in your resume. So for example, if I'm applying to a job that requires me to have really good communication skills, in one of my descriptions, I might say communicated with X, Y, and Z. Overall, you want to make sure that your resume is tailored as specifically as possible to the position that you are applying for, and this will show the company that you did the research. Lastly, I want to dive into some interview tips. So you've made your resume, you've submitted your application, and now you have an interview. Before an interview, like I talked about in the application process, you want to do even more research. Make sure that you know this company inside and out. So my process for interviews is before an interview, I open my little notes app on my computer and I take notes and I try and find any connection that I can, whether it be professional or personal. At the end of the day, these people are looking to work with real, genuine people. So something as little as, oh my gosh, my best friend actually worked at this company, can show that you're a real person too, instead of standing there and kind of acting like well, I did X, Y, and Z, because chances are 40 or 50, 100,000, whatever other people have done that same thing in a different format. But if you can actually bring your personal life into the interview, it will make you stand out in addition to the research that you've done. One question that I always love to ask in interviews is, what is your ideal candidate? Because they will give you all of the key things that you need to know in this interview. For example, if you ask what their ideal candidate is and they say someone that's great at communication, or even someone that loves animals or loves connecting with people, then you can take that and apply it to something that you did. Oh, I worked in retail and I actually connected with people and communicated with people through XYZ, and sometimes they would bring their dogs in and I would make sure to give them a treat or give them anything, basically. That kind of puts it in their mind, oh, okay, they actually might be the perfect candidate for this position. Another question that I love to ask is, what is your favorite part about working at this place? Because people love to talk about the positives of their jobs. So if their favorite thing about working at the place is the people that they work with and the genuine connections that they've made, they'll tell you that, and then you can respond with, oh wow, I would love to work in a place that has really genuine people that I can connect with because X, Y, and Z. This also gets the interviewer in a positive mood, so they'll remember, oh, that candidate actually made me feel really good because I got to talk about what I loved about my job and we had a really good conversation. Lastly, you can also ask them, what do you expect me to accomplish in the first 90 days of this job? This is very important because not only does it give you insight to the job that you're applying for, but you can also kind of gauge whether or not this is a realistic expectation of your boundaries and what you can accomplish. And it's a great way to see if the job is a fit for you and how fast-paced the company might be. Something else to consider in interviews is always sending a thank you letter. You might have heard this again and again and again, and you might be thinking, how do I write a thank you letter? I always start with hello and then the person's name, then say thank you for taking the time to meet with me today because they did take time out of their day to interview you, and say that you appreciate being considered for that specific company and that specific position. Then you can also add why you feel like you're a perfect fit. So you can say something like, this perfectly aligns with my passions of X, Y, and Z. And this is why I still feel like I would be a perfect fit for this position. Next, you want to include something specific that you talked about in the interview to show that you paid a lot of attention. Whether it be a side conversation about a brand that your friend worked for or something new that you learned about the company that you didn't know before. Again, you can even take the question that you asked about their favorite part of working at the company and just put that. Then end the email saying that you look forward from hearing back to them and hope they have a great week, day, weekend, holiday, whatever time the email is sent in. You can close it with that and then say best, your name, or sincerely, your name. Whatever you feel like, really. So you've finished your resume and your application, you've completed your interview, it went great, but you didn't get the job. Rejection emails might be a touchy subject, and I think that it's something that some people might be scared to talk about or touch upon because nobody really likes to talk about rejection. But in reality, you're going to get rejected more than you're going to get accepted. First of all, don't let that stop you because you can get a million no's, but all it takes is one yes. And second of all, chances are your rejection is not personal. So what do you do after that rejection email? Do you just close your laptop, walk away, and cry? Maybe. For the most part, you should still have a positive attitude, because this no is not an I hate you. It's not a you'll never work for us. It's an opportunity. I know that that sounds crazy because you just got rejected, but I promise that it's true. Something that you might not want to do is reply to this email. And even if you want to reply to the email, it might not be a positive reply that you're thinking about. However, the best thing to do is reply to this rejection email. Of course, if it is from an actual person, not just the bot saying that you've been rejected, if that emails you, chances are it says don't reply to this, it's a bot anyways at the bottom of the email. If you've made it through multiple rounds of an interview and you've worked with an actual person, you can use this opportunity to form a connection. So typically what I like to do in replying to my rejection emails is open up with thanking them for taking the time to meet with you. So you want to thank them for the opportunity to interview and put the specific position and the specific company. Also, you can say, while this comes as a disappointment, I always like to include that because it does show that I was genuinely interested in the role, and they will appreciate that in the future. You also then want to thank them for their time and their consideration. The fact that you got an interview is really huge because it means that they looked at your application and were impressed by your credentials. And lastly, you want to express gratitude and say that you enjoyed getting to know them during this process and would appreciate being considered for future opportunities and would love to stay in touch. You can also ask for specific feedback on interviews, and maybe they will reply with feedback, but if not, that's okay too. The worst that can happen is they don't reply or they're not interested in pursuing a further connection with you. However, most people are not going to reply to their rejection emails. So again, this does make you stand out. And if you do plan to apply again at that company, the fact that you replied to the rejection email will kind of give you an upper hand and show, oh, okay, this applicant wasn't bitter, even if you might be, it's okay, about their rejection to the company. And they'll be more inclined to give you more interviews, and you might even make it as far as getting your job in the future. So thank you guys so much for watching my video. I hope that you can at least get 1 or 2 tips that were helpful. If everything was super general, then I'm sorry, but still happy that you made it to the end, I guess. And I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Good luck!